Title: A Night in the Abandoned Mansion. The air was cold and dark, and the only light came from the moon, which faintly shone through the black clouds. The rain had begun to fall gently, and the heavy sound of droplets hitting the wet ground echoed around. Sina and his friends were walking toward an old mansion, a place they had heard terrifying rumors about for years. People said the mansion was cursed and that anyone who entered it would never return. But that night, their curiosity and youthful pride led them to the dark and ominous place. The mansion stood deep within a forest, isolated and forgotten. Its tall, cold walls were covered in green moss, and its broken windows resembled hollow eyes staring at the unwanted guests. The old trees surrounding the mansion cast eerie shadows, and the wind howled through their ancient branches. Sarah, one of Sina's friends, spoke with a trembling voice. Maybe we should turn back. I have a really bad feeling about this. But Sina, always braver than the rest, smiled and said confidently, don't be scared. It's just an old house. There's nothing here. It's all just stories people made up. However, deep inside, they all felt a nameless fear. Something about this night, about this mansion, felt more sinister than the usual scary stories. They sensed that something was waiting for them. When they reached the old wooden door of the mansion, Sina placed his hand on the cold, rusty handle. The door creaked open, and a gust of cold wind rushed out from within. Sina turned on his flashlight and stepped inside. The air inside was thick and musty, the scent of decay and dampness overwhelming. The sound of dripping water echoed in the eerie silence. The walls were lined with ancient, rusted paintings, and the floorboards were cracked and rotten. Sarah carefully stepped inside and whispered, "This place is really creepy." They continued walking down narrow, winding hallways. With each passing moment, the air grew colder and heavier. Their hearts were pounding, and every small noise made them jump. Asan, another friend, suddenly spoke up loudly. Did you hear that? Someone's following us. Everyone stopped and listened to the silence. Faint footsteps echoed from behind them, slow and deliberate. But every time they turned to look, no one was there. Sina, now slightly unsettled, said, "Could someone be living here?" Sarah, her voice trembling, replied, "I don't think so. This place has been abandoned for years." They continued moving forward, but the footsteps grew louder and closer with each step. Eventually, they arrived at a large hall. In the center of the hall stood a massive, dusty mirror. The mirror looked as if it hadn't been cleaned in decades, its surface covered in thick layers of dust. Sina walked toward the mirror and wiped the dust away with his hand. Suddenly, he jumped back in horror. In the mirror, he saw not just their reflections, but a dark, shadowy figure standing behind them, dressed in black, eyeless, and motionless. Sina, terrified, turned to the others and said, "We need to get out of here, right now." But just as they all began running toward the doors of the hall slammed shut on their own with a deafening bang. Sina's flashlight flickered and went out, plunging them into complete darkness. Strange whispers began to fill the air, as if they were rising from the very walls and floor. Sina, his voice shaking, shouted, "We have to leave. There's something here with us." They all scrambled to open the doors, but none of them would budge. The whispers grew louder and more disturbing. Suddenly, Sarah screamed, "Something is pulling me."